Out of cruel space, into a wider galaxy, Part 1. The Dauntless. The man he sees is of Asian descent and at the age where age is starting to hit him, but clearly has hit back hard enough that it's backed off. Good to meet you, Admiral. Admiral's cistern attempts, and the man's naturally narrow eyes narrow further. I am no Admiral. Until we determine precisely what has happened, we will be working rather closely, however. I am Observer Damien Wu. Your actions have necessitated the creation of an entirely new posting. Congratulations, Observer Wu says. So they believe me? The governments of Earth are uncertain. However, the private and properly encrypted confirmation of implicitly trusted soldiers, coupled with the samples and eyewitness testimonies of the first group, has bought you time. Time for what precisely? Time for me to see. The accounts of Sir Masterson, Mr. Engel, and several others have raised very interesting points. Furthermore, having numerous agents sent back de-aged as punishment for failing a simple operation was eye-opening, to say nothing of the intact cadavers and entire barge of wealth, Observer Wu says before there is a sudden thump behind him, and an old woman in a stern charcoal gray outfit walks into view. Her eyes are the same size, but there is the impression that one or the other is bulging out of her skull as she glares at them. She licks her teeth, and for a moment there is the impression of a forest of iron nails protruding from her gums. But no, just the yellowed teeth of a senior citizen. Madam Stepanova, has anyone ever said it's good to see you again? Admiral Cistern asks. Not for months, and don't you dare break that streak. Good to see you again. Herbert immediately chimes up. He gets the full glare. Oh, I see Philip has gone out of his way to finish up with you. Not just me, Herbert chirps. I was to ask about the child, Observer Wu notes plainly. I'm in my 30s. Advanced healing techniques also de-ages the subject. When it was still relatively unknown to use on humans, I was hit with it the first time and lost over half my physical age. The second time it was much more refined, but the sheer damage I took meant I still was damn near forced backwards through puberty. As it stands, I'm just barely on the edge of the first growth spurt, Herbert says before saluting. As it stands, I am intelligence operative and administrator Herbert Jameson. I've also earned the alien honors of Huntsman and Grand Patriarch for my efforts across multiple worlds. I see. You were mentioned in the reports. 100 brides? Yes, sir. And openly living in the embassy of another political entity. My wives and children are citizens there, and through marriage and fatherhood, so am I. I suppose congratulations are in order then, Observer Wu says. Now then, your information package, including a warning about a political firestorm currently raging across the planet upon which you now stand. What has happened? Operative Jameson discovered an absurdly large cache of an obscenely rare and dangerous material during a routine observation mission. The sheer rarity of the substance, coupled with the horrific method of its manufacture, was so severe we had to share it with numerous other organizations, which has led to a quiet panic across the entire planet. As of this moment, there are, Admiral Cistern checks his communicator, 74 active conflicts my forces are aiding and quelling. I see. It is severe enough that the entire planet is on alert. It is severe enough that the living goddess of a major religion is perhaps moments away from declaring a crusade. Admiral Cistern returns. That revelation takes a moment to process. I see things have gotten rather exciting. They have, much of which I do not care to discuss across intergalactic communications. They're far too easy to hack, in my opinion. Are they? I assume that any communications I do not have in person as public information. I would recommend a similar outlook on operational security. Our capacity to keep out spies and bugs is limited to the physical or direct messages, mail or record-ins on isolated devices. Admiral Cistern says, and Observer Wu nods. Prudent. Now this. He begins before someone starts speaking very quickly in Korean. Really? Then put them on screen. Let's see them. Admiral Cistern has time to only raise an eyebrow before a screen opens in the call, and the image of Lady Takanped can be seen smiling at the camera. Good. There you are. You received the proper payment, I take it? Have your governments honored their side of the bargain? It is an unusual bargain to have a fortune placed in orbit of our world with a message of what is wanted in exchange. Observer Wu notes, if there were any other method of having my wishes known, I would have used it. How many people have been in contact with Earth? Admiral Cistern asks as his mind whirls. A fair few, I'd wager. We cannot enter ourselves, but that does not preclude us from sending care packages or making special requests. We know where your world is and can easily calculate all the trajectories required to safely put an automated ship in orbit of your Earth. Lady Takanped says, now, did you bring them? Did they accept? They did, Observer Wu states. It also inspired numerous of our governments to send other such individuals. I'm not sure I appreciate being left out of the loop. Admiral Cistern says, he's fairly certain of what's coming, but he doesn't want to voice such hopes. Your sons, Edward and Peter, and I presume other family members? Some others, yes. A few declined but sent personalized messages. We had to reduce the number of soldiers on the ship to ensure we had room for the packages, messages, and passengers. Observer Wu states before grinning, it's being used as a test to the viability of shuttling people out of human territory. Incidentally, if you are indeed the august Speaker of the Council, I am, Lady Takanped preens. She is, Admiral Cistern confirms. Then I would like to note, before I arrive on Centris officially, that Earth and her governments has declared all of cruel space as its sovereign territory and lay claim to all mining, salvaging, and colonial rights within the reach of the natural null repository. You will not find opposition to such a proclamation. I assure you, Lady Takanped says. Good, because the first hints of colonization have begun. The ship designs that were sent to us are being tested, and the rail system to place things in orbit is being upgraded as we speak. Observer Wu notes, but that is neither here nor there. We are here, we intend to investigate things further, so we can finally and conclusively confirm things one way or the other. So until then, I have a distraction for you. You know, stating that something is a distraction isn't the best of... Admiral Cistern begins to chide Observer Wu before the man steps to the side to show two people entering the Inevitable's bridge. Edward? Peter? Herbert almost smiles as he's forced to think as fast as he wants to move. He claps his hands and gets the attention of the bridge. I think we can afford the Admiral a few minutes alone with his sons, don't you all? He says, and people start to stand. Observer Wu looks suddenly off balance. No, not like that. Observer Wu, my good man. Perhaps you could escort the young men to your own office to let them speak to the Admiral as he returns to his own office? After all, a reunion between father and sons is a special thing, I think we'll agree. We have important business to attend to. Then why bring in a distraction? Herbert asks with a disarming laugh. Everyone sit back down. Good grief. Transfer the stream to the Admiral's office, please. Come on, people. We're professionals here. You are every inch his student, Madame Stepanova states plainly, and Herbert beams at her. Stop that. I will find a way to whack you from this distance. Just jot a note down, and I'm sure you'll get all your recreational caning out of the way. Although my wives are certain to be upset with you if you take up the fun time. Herbert sends back. I wonder if you'll stay this brave when I'm in shooting distance. She asks, and he imagines that if it were only thin glass between them, a gun would be out to emphasize the point. Theoretically, if you get the math right, I am. He glibly notes. It's a bit on the easy side to dodge a shot that takes so long that the post would be quicker. Sad but true. Imagine if we could, though. Oh man, assassinations would be easy, Herbert remarks. Artillery are not assassination weapons. She chides him. Anything can be an assassination weapon. He counters. That's Sir Philip speaking. I am his student, Herbert remarks. Yes, you are, she says with narrowed eyes. Then there is a smirk. How is that girl doing, by the way, his other student? Currently? She's keeping dozens of potential hot zones from heating up. Saving time, lives, and money, Herbert says. Good. At least one of you is doing something useful. Well, if Her Majesty wasn't demanding so much of my attention, I would be heading a massive investigation and defensive action. But some people need personal handling, Herbert replies. But that's neither here nor there. My streams are hard at work keeping things together. Besides, I've reached the waiting portion of today's operation. My data analysts need to earn their paychecks after all. It's good for the soul. I see. Tell me, boy, that title. What is a Grand Patriarch? It means that an entire species has been shaped by me, that I've reached out and changed the very course of a people's history. I have primed the Jalak birds to speak to each other, to share their thoughts beyond basic hunting cries or mating rituals. So you basically taught birds to talk? Like parrots? No, like teaching crows to have an actual conversation. Not mimic, speak, he says. And I suppose you did this out of the goodness of your heart in between shifts while waving the Union Jack like a good pawn of Phillips? Actually, I was outright forced into a family vacation by Grand Hunt Mistress and Grand Matriarch Yzma, my grandmother-in-law and living legend. She was curious about humanity, and it was her way of poking at us to see what would happen. She liked it, he says. Of course, most people who get to multiple thousands of years of age are either obscenely rich, storied, or skilled. Side effect of all that experience, isn't it, Granny? If you want me to skin you with a rusted spoon, just say so, Madame Stepanova states. I want you to try. Herbert challenges, and there is a slight flicker of approval. And give you that much of my attention? Are you trying to stop me from doing my job? She asks. Depends entirely on what your job is. And that depends on your job. You know what it is. So it hasn't changed since I departed. Field man being groomed for command. Field man who takes numerous shifts of command. Oh, and my identity as Private Stream is very, very widely used now as a low-profile field agent. In fact, we have a whole army of what appear to be child soldiers, but are in fact assassins and bodyguards of the highest order. And what's the difference between the assassin and bodyguard variants? Madame Stepanova asks as she smiles despite herself. A single lawful order, he says, and the very slight smile widens. She really liked that. Good, she says before scanning the bridge. There are several non-humans among your bridge crew. Are they properly vetted? They are. Are you certain? I am, he says with narrowing eyes. Really? Madame Stepanova, you have not been sworn in as any part of this organization and are not currently on loan to us. Any further inquiry into our hiring standards, practices, and the like are going to be met with refusal from this point. Good. You let me in too far as this, boy. Nonsense. I gave you enough to form entirely inaccurate conclusions while still remaining accommodating and polite before our hacker audience, Herbert says, examining his fingernails. Now, is there anything else? Where's Sir Philip? His loan period to us expired. He's off following his additional orders. And no, I officially do not know what those orders entail, Herbert says, and Madame Stepanova's smile widens ever so. A hunt, then? Good, she says. I look forward to it. The eyes of Mother Russia? I do not answer to you, boy, but I am no enemy and will occasionally be on loan. She says, and he nods. Good to know. Unfortunately, you're not technically on loan to us yet, as you're still a week, perhaps two away. Yes, which means I do not have to tell you about the passengers or the like, she replies, and his eyebrow goes up as a woman who had been scheming in life or death situations before he was even conceived and never actually stopping tries to bait him. No, you don't, he concedes instead, and her eyes narrow. Now the game truly begins. Out of cruel space into a wider galaxy, Part 2. The Pirates. So they're here, Agenda says contently as she finishes feeding her fussiest little girl. Yep, Jingai chirps happily as her freshly hatched little children are happily playing on the glowing, shimmering platform that her rattle has brought to life. She can't do anything complicated, but a soft, shiny platform for her little slithers to play around in. She can do that, but it takes some focus. The tiny, fluffy child of Vuni is cuddling the strong jungle Nagasha tail that wraps around her own tail. How formal a call do you think we should make? Miles asks in an amused tone. Not especially. After all, the babes ensure it will never be properly formal. They're too happy and healthy. Agenda notes. I blame you for that, Miles says, and Agenda laughs. If you don't want the blame, I'll take it, Vuni remarks. You're just as guilty, Miles says, and Vuni laughs in response. What's going to happen? Jon Guice asks, and Miles is pensive for a moment. I don't know, he notes as his hand gently rubs the handle of his revolver. The constant rubbing had necessitated him reburning the names of his family back into it. But no amount of waffling about will let me know. So if you don't mind, I've been getting something a little ready. Is this what you've been sneaking around to do for the last 3 days? Agenda asked. Something like that. It's a bit of a treat I wanted to give you girls, so care to join me? Manha offers. What have you done? Me and the boys got together a great big feast so that we can all talk the inevitable at once. It took a bit of doing, but when the boys and I get moving, we really get moving. Are you including Red Squadron and Bearman in that? And a lot of cadets too. Marcus gave them a proper mission in setting up the area. He says, how is that a mission? It involves deploying a military force to secure and prepare an area for higher-ranking officers to approach and remain there for a time, Miles says before offering his hand. There's plenty of space for all our little ones and for all our allies. Give them all a big impression. How does that sound? Well, if you've been planning this for days, I have, all of us have, then I suppose we have to show up, don't we? Agenda says in a luxurious tone. I'll get my coat. The hall that Miles leads them to is a massive refurbished hangar that has all kinds of carpets put down, tapestries hanging from the ceiling, and tables upon tables of different treats of all sorts already out. The undaunted cadets are all rushing around, putting down more meals and treats, and between the richness of the carpets, the crystal bowls and platters and expensive drinks and foods, but the sort of scrambled way it's been put together by the cadets lends it an earnestness that bleeds through. More important, though, are numerous floating platforms where a child can be safely put down and be right beside their parent. Oh, this is a treat. I haven't even been one of you guys for long, a four-part harmony says as Moira walks in with little Lu Shu, napping in the arms of the four bodies that didn't speak. The toxic little girl not only has numerous of the protective pendants on her and woven into her clothing, but is in a dark jumper that lets her bright skin stand out as if for presentation. Well, as their novels say, all for one and one for all, a new voice says as a pair of Canadors lead in their own family. More and more people pour in from all entrances, many in uniform, many of them her own girls. Some of them she barely recognizes. Every single one of them that notices her looking raises a glass, nods, salutes, or somehow pays their respects to her. Her little one squirms ever so and is softly comforted. For a moment there is almost a feeling of vertigo. There was a time where all this wasn't even a dream of a dream. She could remember the feeling. How could she forget it? The sensation of something gripping your very mind and soul and stopping you from even thinking of disobeying. Then so long trying to get things right, trying to be in control of her own destiny before finally achieving it and learning just how hard that was. How many sacrifices and concessions she made before what seemed to be one of her final concessions turned out to be final in the best of ways. All right, we have a connection to the inevitable. Who wants to say hello to the next batch of humans in the galaxy? Ryu calls out. My lady? Miles asks as he smiles up at her. She gives him a raised eyebrow at that. My lady, is it? Well then, I better live up to it, she says. Connect us, she commands, and there is a cheer through the room before a massive projector uses one of the tapestry-covered walls as a screen. Good ship Inevitable, can you hear me? We can, you are on a friendly frequency. A man of Asian descent says, sitting stiffly in his command chair. I am Observer Wu, sent from Earth to conclusively determine what is going on outside our corner of the galaxy. Identify yourself, please. I am Duchess Agenda Lilpal. I am the ruler of the Vuxa system and undaunted world. I greet you because I have long learned my lesson to stay on the good side of humans. Have you now? If I'm not mistaken, that is a fully grown human right next to you. You look like you could take him fairly easily, Observer Wu says in an amused tone. She looks down to Miles before shaking her head. I made that mistake once. My entire ship was not enough, she says fondly before pulling him close. Then I was offered a deal, and he used it to help make me a duchess. So you'll forgive me if I think humans are a good thing to have around. Did he now? I didn't realize galactic conquest was the intent of the Dauntless and her crew. Wu notes. Well, as one of the conquered, I would like to say I prefer this result. After all, being able to walk about the city without a bodyguard is a welcome change of pace. Vuni says, drawing attention to herself with a slight bow. Ambassador Vuni Luxt at your service. So this world prefers to be conquered? Observer Wu asks. This world was a slum at its best, a hellscape at worst, Mari Horny states as the Carib woman waves to the camera. Mari Horny, I was here to witness it all. I've seen slaves freed, monsters hunted down no matter what kind of power or influence they have, be they person or beast. With them, I've seen the children I work so hard to protect grow stronger and thrive. Doom has come to this world time after time, and they met it each time. If you're here to observe, then observe this room. Everyone here saved, aided, or inspired by the people you've come to evaluate. There are 10 pure-blooded humans in this room, but beyond it is nearly 1 billion souls who will vouch for them from the first to last. And so will I. No need to be so dramatic, ma'am. I'm an observer, not a judge. I am here to see and hear without bias or illusions. Things are odd, and odd things have happened. The governments and officials back home need to understand clearly and without any doubt. So that is why I am here. There was confusion in the first message sent back. The second furthered the confusion due to multiple parties having separate interests. I have been tested, tried, and guaranteed numerous concessions and payments for an utterly neutral perspective. So your word is going to be how all is, then they decide if we committed treachery. Franklin notes as he floats up with several bundles around him, many of them laughing. Behold this then. My children, all healthy, with myself as the only human parent. My daughters take after their mothers. My son takes after me, but has his mother's strength. He is nearly transparent. Observer Wu notes before Franklin gives a little boy a tickle, and he flickers in and out of visibility while laughing. Most interesting. This Vuxa world of yours, before I do my research upon it, is there something you would like to say about it? This is a world on the edge of wild space, which means that it's often been used in the past as a place where experiments happen, Miles says. Interesting. Such as? Observer Wu asks. Such as my daughter here. I am Moira Octaleri. I will cut through the details and simply state that my anatomy allowed me to be experimented on a great deal. She says, and Observer Wu looks at her oddly. Are you one or many? I am one, but I am 8 as one, she says. As is my daughter, I have named her Liu Shu. She was a piece of myself remade to produce a weapon. She and I were both rescued. I was forgotten in darkness for thousands of years, as was my daughter, held in a single moment in time and left to rot. And is she a weapon? I am told you have creatures similar to her new ability back on your homeworld. We do? What is the name of this creature? The poison dart frog, she says, and the Observer Wu's eyebrows go up. Don't forget about the fact that we fought off that robot witch. Robot witch? Wu prompts. A weapon of war created by a very large, dangerous, and expansive criminal family. A death robot known as Mother Massacre, Moira says. So consider that. Without them going, I don't even know what to call it. I saw the contradicting orders. Without them going sane, for lack of a better term, I would still be in a slowly failing stasis capsule, buried and forgotten in the darkness. And so, in summation, and from the mouths of those that clearly trust them, what is your opinion of the Undaunted and the humans that make it up? When I was brought to this world, it was as a slave, my dignity ripped from me, my home destroyed, and in less than a day, I had my freedom, dignity, and a new home. One of the Arimenta that agenda cannot recognize out of hand announces. And my own. My whole family, those that were enslaved or freed, those that were indoctrinated into that wretched way of life, have been allowed time to recover, Bearman says grandly. They took me in, a smaller voice says as Karim rises up. I'm a Hloshab, death-born. I could have reasonably only expected to have my core shattered, or shunned for my entire life. Instead, I have a home. And to be death-born means what? I am a slobe. By blood, I have only one true parent. I was broken off of them far too soon, and they died as I survived. Death-born, or, well, I don't have blood, but you get the idea, right? Kareem asked. I understand, Observer Wu notes. I have more calls incoming. Is there more from Vuxa for me to see or hear? Over here! A jubilant voice calls out, and the room turns to see Hu standing on the shoulders of Heifer to tower over everyone with the Agella's height added to his own. Red 5 calling it in. The Vuxa defense fleets fly fast and proud to keep our home safe. The crowd around him, pilots all, throw up their right arms and cheer along with Huho. Welcome to the Galaxy Observer. We're 10 tons of awesome in a 2-pound bag. Let's rock. Observer Wu smiles as he looks around. I look forward to discovering the truth of things. That's the fun part of the galaxy, sir. It's so absurd we don't need to lie. Miles states, and Observer Wu turns back to him with a smirk. Well, we shall see, won't we? He asks. Is there anything more? I take it you're not in the mood for a display of flight prowess. We've been working on a new routine. Hu calls out. Perhaps later. I have numerous calls waiting. Observer Wu states, now if you'll excuse me. Out of cruel space into a wider galaxy, Part 3. The buzz on the spin. That's the third time the call was dropped. Hoagie states the obvious. From what I can tell, they're being hacked like it's the latest fad. Even if our call goes through clean, it's going to be seen by an audience of several billion at least. Demon replies. His tiny little girl is sitting on his shoulder, so everyone's watching their language, even Zabreza. Sure, Kathy was growing quick and was developing a good sense of humor, but not even Minacy wanted to be responsible for teaching her the naughty words. It takes several more tries with the bridge crew chuckling at things before suddenly the link is accepted to find a thoroughly unamused Asian man glaring at them. The man then lets out a breath. 286 separate calls with the image of a woman presenting herself. I have never been simultaneously flattered and insulted. Spoil for choice, sir? Demon asks. There is a moment of a pause as the man's eyebrow quirks in frustration. Yes. I'm afraid it's a common issue the galaxy over, sir. We humans are hot commodity. Even a hideous slob of a man would find himself inundated with attention. A competent man with goals, ideals, and motivation? A feast before the starving, sir, Hoagie says. Clearly, Officer Eastman, he says before relaxing a little. I am Observer Wu. I have been charged by the nations of Earth with bearing impartial witness to what has occurred the galaxy over. I have already spoken to several pockets of humanity, including but not limited to 3 other space stations. The newly risen nobility of Vuxa and, of course, the Dauntless and the embassy on Centris. So what are you looking for? We've sent back numerous eyewitness testimonies and as much in the way of resources and proof of our claims that can survive the damaging effects of cruel space. A fair portion of exotic material and cadavers were actually supplied from this very station. What more do you need? I just wish to speak with people. I will be communicating with and traveling to every major locations where humans have touched in the galaxy. To see the truth of things with unclouded eyes, Observer Wu says, and there are some nods. Now then, if you could describe your location and posting, please? Certainly. We'll do that in reverse, though, if you don't mind. I do not. We are posted here to both ensure that we have friendly contacts in an area of interest and to learn more about the galaxy at large. Between ourselves and our fellows posted at other stations, we are writing the operations manual for how to maintain, police, administrate, protect, and supply a fully functional space station with a substantial permanent population. We're also recruiting and keeping our eyes out for unusual technologies, tactics, and techniques. This station alone contains a permanent population that rivals several first-world nations on Earth with an industrial capacity, well beyond what those nations can provide. Can it now? This station is self-sustaining? Food, air, and other such supplies? It turns out that a great deal of air is released by harvesting asteroids. Most of them contain a large amount of ice, even when they're primarily minerals of some kind. Food is grown in hydroponics on such a scale we outright export it. The mining provides the metals and other materials for further products, and again, hydroponics of a different source give us oils, which leads to plastics. Cloth comes in too. The station is completely self-sustaining at this point. If the rest of the galaxy was to vanish, then all we need are some rocks, and we can keep this place going forever. Demon explains, and Observer Wu nods. And have you learned about these techniques and technologies? Yes, however many of them are reliant upon Axiom. And the control of this station? He asks, and Menisi pokes at a few of them with her tentacles to get people to shift away. And you are the woman in charge, I believe? Indeed, although not for too much longer. I've had my fun, but the station has become a tedium. I will admit that your species showing up has broken up the monotony a touch, but only enough to give me enough time to really make sure my heiress has this place on lock and with an unmatched command crew. And you're fine with them having that level of power? Observer Wu asks, and Menisi has a tentacle point right down at Hoagie. This one has been in charge of over 10% of my station. The most productive agriculture decks we have are in his power, both officially and unofficially. The businesswomen there fear the flamingo shirts. Hey, I got flowers on at least half of them. Hoagie protests, and she turns to him. Hey, station boss or not, no horning on my hubby, Jabreza says, buzzing into view and pressing back on the woman who leans back in amusement. You Charbies are so easy to rile up, she says fondly as Jabreza sheathes her weapon while still giving her a massive stink eye. So that video was not an elaborate prank in horrific taste. Observer Wu notes, reality is stranger than fiction, sir. Hoagie notes, indeed it is, and now that you've confused me, I am going to return the favor. Observer Wu states, and Hoagie looks from side to side and everyone else is equally baffled. Sir? Hoagie asks as Observer Wu presses a button on his armrest and requests for a certain passenger to be sent up. What is this? He freezes entirely as the camera shifts and he can see, Mom. Daniel, Janet Eastman says with a smile. And one of those things that got you. I told you we needed to edit that video, Jabreza says, but it would clearly have been faked in some way, and Hoagie trails off. Are you all right? The way out of cruel space is no fun. It was not pleasant, but I worked in the kitchens for most of it, and it kept me busy, she says. Familiar territory then. A Starship mess hall is nothing like a corner bistro in New York, Janet says, and he chuckles. Are you sure you're all right? I mean, the rail shot into orbit, the initial training, I'm part of the civilian experiment, to see how easy or hard it is to get people out of our little corner of the galaxy. And the verdict, Miss Hoagie's mother? Menisi asks in an amused tone. Something needs to be done about the zero-gravity trip. It's too much. I've needed some chemical help to stay calm during parts of the trip. Yeah, it's not much better when you're trained for it, Hoagie says. Are you coming here? Of course. Those videos were horrifying. If those girls are walking all over you like that, then I don't care if I'm numbered 200 to 1 or 2,000 to 1. I didn't work my butt off as a waitress when you were a little boy, just to see a bunch of bees walk all over you. So I'm putting you on notice, huh? She growls out. Okay, lady, I'm giving you the private number because I love that attitude, and because we need to get ahead of this before there's a war kicked off. Jabreza promises. There is no war that's going to kick off. Mother Charbis are a very defensive species and refuse to let people see their relaxed state unless they have absolute trust. No exceptions. That's why you've never seen them in anything less than one of their most agitated states. When not safely in the hive, a Charbis is only a few moments away from violence. Is the hive like a beehive? It's not made of waxy hexagons. It's a bunker with innumerable defenses and very comfortable on the inside. They're so reinforced and secure that it's the most defensive part on the station, barring the other hives. Hey, you're really pushing it. I haven't said anything secret. I haven't shown anything secret. Anyone with working eyes can see a hive is nearly impossible to attack if they want to live. And with how wealthy and good with crops Charbies are in general, any idiot can figure out that they have plenty within the hive. Well, yes, but the idea that anyone has any idea what the hives are like, Jabreza says, and then Janet's eyes widen as she realizes exactly what she's seeing. Oh, it's like that. No wonder you haven't bothered running. It's not too different from home, was it? Tough on the outside, everything you want inside? Pretty much, Hoagie says, and a very relieved Janet lets out a sigh of relief. Good, I'm still coming over, though. But what about back home? Aren't you? Daniel, it's okay. The old building was, well, it was soon to be decommissioned anyway. Oh, and I suppose the little place out back. Gone too, Janet says. I see, Hoagie says. Are you all right? Zabreza asks, and he nods. Yeah, the place I grew up is gone. Even if there was a way back to Earth, a true way, then I still couldn't got home again. Everyone leaves home eventually. Not everyone can go back, Janet says. Still, don't think you're keeping me away just because I've gotten an idea about you, young lady. I'm coming to make sure you're treating my little boy right. If this is a woman's galaxy, then this woman is making sure her boy is with the best in the galaxy. Understand me? Mom! Daniel! She says even as he gives one of his fellows a dirty look when they snort. They put their hands up and back away. So fierce, young man. Now, he simply watches the video feed as mother and son speak, trying to get a grip on the body language of the alien creatures. There's a great deal of play and movement around the Charbis bee woman. The ears are a massive tell on the Ikea mouse girl, and the Menenmi seemed utterly passive, in control. The men seemed either comfortable or excited, and things seemed to be matching up. Of course, Mother Eastman was an open book to his practiced eye, worried, putting on a brave front, but the kind of woman who had given up her life to raise a child properly and was now chasing him out of not only maternal duty, but a sense of emptiness now that her great struggle was finished. He knew her story, a sad tale of how two people, neither with families, had found each other, and then shortly as life seemed to be picking up for the happy ending, an accident had taken the father, leaving a single mother to mourn and raise a child alone. A woman with no really marketable skills beyond being a woman and having a sympathetic story. She had been hired and remained hired at a moderately successful bistro for over a decade, even being held on because she had a teenage son at home working a part-time to help out. Sad story, but one that had given her and the boy spines of steel. Still, open book regardless, and his communicator goes off and he checks it. It is a text from an unknown number. Enjoying the show? Tilda Manisi. His eyebrows climb up a little and he reconsiders his thoughts on the octopus alien. She's clearly very aware of things and likely has the implants required to communicate without being obvious. Or he's looking at a body double. Either way, she's tipped her hand for some reason, which is bothering him. Why did she reveal this? There is no way to determine without further interaction, so he replies with a simple yes. Good. A voyeur who doesn't even enjoy the show is just a bore. Is she just mocking him? This seems to be more mockery than anything, so he asks a simple question. Why does it matter? It doesn't. You're a prickly one, aren't you? Yes, I am. Is there an issue? Not at all. Well, that's not useful. Is she just poking him for entertainment? She still hasn't moved at all beyond basic shows of amusement, as mother and son make plans to get her to the station, and the Charbis' daughter-in-law is putting on a clearly fake show of protesting having the woman be brought into the hive. A hand falls onto his shoulder, and he jumps in his seat a little before turning to see a smiling, but old and withered face. Can I help you? I was just wondering if I could make use of the communication relays next. As entertaining as the last few months were, I do think I should give a proper warning to my approach, if only to see how the boy responds. Do you think he will respond poorly? Only if he's changed far more than I'd expect. But who knows? The mystery is half the fun of life now, isn't it? The elderly man says. Observer Wu considers for a few moments. This man had broken into his personal office without setting off an alarm, without alerting the guards, and all the while needing a cane and with his joints audibly creaking. If you tell me how you broke in, Mr. Koga, then I think I can accommodate you. Oh, that? Easy enough, follow me, lad. I'll show you where you need a few more eyes. Or lasers. Lasers are always fun. Not as much as a guard dog. But having a poor Inu in the vents is just cruel, no matter how much you dislike Chihuahuas. That was rather specific. I was supposed it was, wasn't it? Anyways, this way, young man. Out of Cruel Space, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 4. Not exactly hidden. The sound of old bones creaking is the result of him finally sitting down and straightening a little. He twists his cane around and gently presses the head into the torso of the woman that just tried to sneak up on him. Really now, we don't have that kind of relationship. You can talk to me like a normal person. I understand, Daiju-san. I just want to inform you that I'm going to watch your conversation, Madame Stepanova says as she forces away his cane with surprising force. Or perhaps not so surprising, she's been out into the wider galaxy once already. It would not surprise him in the slightest if she was already doing something to restore herself the vigor and power of her youth. I doubt your old boyfriend is going to be where my grandson has ended up. No doubt he's stirring up trouble in that very British way of his. Koga Daiju, father of Koga Daigo, grandfather of Koga Daiki, and Koga Dani remarks, and his cane is pushed back into him with enough force to slide him down the plush leather of the couch somewhat. He pulls his cane back, and she sits down next to him. Do you remember when we were both assigned to stop the deviant? She asks, and he chuckles. Yes. To be honest, I knew he was hiding among the sumo wrestlers. I just figured it would be impossible for him not to get thrown out by the larger men. I had a lot of, how do you say it? Egg on my face? Yes, a lot of egg on my face when I learned that day how quickly he makes friends. So it was your fault. Yours as well. You could have told me the man could charm anyone. There was a language barrier a mile wide and a cultural barrier at least twice its size. It shouldn't have been possible, Madame Stepanova says before growling. Not that he didn't pull that sort of nonsense off on the regular. We didn't speak much afterwards. But I understand you received additional orders to let him go. He uncovered a source of corruption and quite literally cut it out while fighting off the effects of deliberately improper fugu. After that, it was determined that he would either no longer be a problem or was not a priority problem any longer as he was departing, and there was quite the mess he had revealed, Daiju says before turning a pointed look to Madame Stepanova. Of course, it's not like you weren't a massive problem to deal with as well. While I understand that weapon smugglers dealing with certain cults in our country were indeed an issue for us both, random buildings imploding with the dissected corpses of your enemies inside lead to quite a few sleepless nights. Oh, you mean like what you gave my division when high-ranking administrators were panicking at the sight of their own shadows, insistent that they were being stared at through them? I fail to see how Gaijin's superstitions are my fault, Daiju notes with a warm smile. And I fail to see how the poor building practices of your country are mine, Madame Stepanova replies primly. After about a minute, they both smirk and look away. I'm going to call my grandson now. If you're going to listen in, then I request a lack of commentary. Since when have I been the type to give commentary? Age, youth, and I assume axiom as well. All change people. Like how you became a voyeur in your old age. I simply lack a reason to avoid appreciating the lovelier side of things. Beauty is to be appreciated after all, he says as he leans back a little and uses his cane to bang on a few buttons. A holographic interface shows itself, and he spends about a minute slowly pecking at the long sequence of numbers for his boy. Now then, mind your manners, madam. His teasing only earns a light scoffing before the screen lights up. Daiju moves quickly to make sure he adjusts his glasses at the exact same time Daiki does. His grandson pauses, and so does he, moves to the side, and Daiji mimics the movement, including several more shifts until Daiki holds up a hand and there is fire within it. Still learning to do that. Grandfather, you're alive! Yes, when my time came, I went to the Western countries so I could challenge their Reaper to go rather than chess. He wasn't too practiced with it, so I bought enough time to escape, Daiju says, and Daiki raises a skeptical eyebrow. So I can expect you soon then, Daiki asks. Sooner than you think. That does not help, Daiki replies. It's all you need, Daiju says with a fond smile before nodding. Now, how is this village you've told me about? Our population has ballooned lately. There are many children underfoot. You scoundrel! Tell me everything. Not like that. And much of my interest is now gone. Even if I tell you it involves a blood feud, centuries old, with two noble houses butchering each other down into poverty, even as they interbreed and turn from merely murderers to kinslayers in the process? Daiki asks, and Madame Stepanova leans a little closer at that revelation. Grandfather. Yes, Daiju asks. I will never call that evil creature grandmother, Daiki states, and Madame Stepanova cackles at that. Grandson. Surely you understand I have better taste than that, Daiju protests. Yes, but I also know that at your age, senility can be a thing, Daiki says in a regretful tone, and Daiju puts a hand to his chest as if wounded. My own blood, turning on me. I am merely concerned for your health, grandfather. If your mind is so far gone as to woo so wicked a witch, then there is so very little I can do for you. Little more than perhaps a mercifully swift, Daiki says solemnly, and Madame Stepanova cackles again even as she stands up and leaves the room. Put the knife down, young man, or I'll find a way to thump you from here, the very amused Daiju says, and is met with the much younger version of his smile from Daiki. She's gone now, well done. Thank you, Daiki says. Now as to what bloated the village, our mutual friend Vernon, on his sappy romantic way, stepped into the middle of a centuries-old blood feud, and things got interesting in a hurry. Many of the details can be skipped, but the forest kami decided that the feud was a foul thing and intervened. As I am bound to it as it is bound to me, I became part of it, and now the children of both the Barlas and Harkul clans are living as one group here, forced to intermingle. That's one way of doing it, Daiju says after a moment of consideration. It gets better. Please continue. Part of the way the families made war with each other was taking advantage of how rare and valuable men are. Kidnapping? Indeed. Oh, and it led to the interbreeding. Quite literally one family with two names in an increasingly pointless feud. Oh, tell me that there were some members who were known by different names to both sides, and they were forced to try and fight themselves. Not quite that crazy, just a lot of stupid. The children still get into fights with each other across Barlas and Harkul lines. Or rather, they try. The forest is powerful and ever watching. Any attempt to hurt each other just fails. Fails how? Daiju asks, and suddenly Daiki is a few inches to the left without moving. Shunshin? Something like that. It's called woodwalking, and since they're in the woods, they're subject to it. Woodwalking. Teleportation is well known the galaxy over. But woodwalking is unique. It cares not for distance, it cares not for energy. Its sensation is unique to those that understand how to feel for it, and it always leads back to the forest in some manner. This feel for axiom, can you teach it? From this distance? Oh, has the master become the student? In the end, a master is merely the best student, and this student always seeks to learn. Daiju says fondly. Very well, everyone undaunted had a basic guidance, but get comfortable. Already done. Good. Then turn your eye inwards. You're already in the axiom. It surrounds you. It has merged with you. With every part of your clothing, with the cane in your hands, your skin, your hair, your bones and muscles and organs, all of it. The gravity returning distracted you with the sensation of your muscles needing to work again. But there is something new. Something that you've been fooled into thinking is normal. Something that feels old, but is new, Daiki explains. And it is nowhere specific? Daiju asks. It is everywhere, in everything. In everything, Daiju notes as he closes his eyes and feels. It responds to thought? It does. Words and gestures can help, but are not needed, Daiki says, and Daiju nods before suddenly moving his arms in gestures. After the third, there is a brief flicker of flame which he catches. He holds onto the fire and brings it in front of his face before gently blowing on it. The flames grow and dance within his hand as a smile crosses his face. I believe I have found it, Daiju says as he has the fire shrink and then dance along the back of his knuckles. Well, damn. Oh, come now, grandson. I've just told you that I've learned to learn, and I've spent 3 of your lifetimes learning how to better learn, Daiju notes before he catches the tiny rolling fireball and crushes it into a wisp of smoke. He then breathes a small tongue of flame into his hand and nods as it responds just as eagerly. This will make setting things on fire much easier. Thank you, grandson. I'm still a little annoyed you had so easy a time with it. I needed to have someone directly hand me Kutha to get it, Daiki says. Well, as they say, youth is wasted on the young, and wisdom is lost on the old. Hey now, no turning my smug superiority around like that. Respect your elders, boy. You're not an elder out here, grandfather. Oh no, outside of cruel space, you're an irresponsibly young parent who sired an equally irresponsibly young parent, Daiki says, wagging a finger at him. For shame, grandfather, siring a family so young. Young, he calls it, Daiju says with a very amused smile. Well, if I'm such a bad influence, then I'm sure you'd chastise me in person. Yes, get over to Serbo as quickly as possible. You're on Genin training duties. Oh no, however will I survive teaching children how to move and think and observe their surroundings? To think of my own grandson turning one of my favorite things into a punishment. The deviousness of it all. Daiju keeps his tone so devoid of sarcasm in his comment, it actually loops around to being sarcastic again. That's what you get. You will be placed in a mountain village hidden beneath the branches of a mighty forest, surrounded by snot-nosed students on all sides, forced to eat freshly hunted game and harvested crops on the daily, and made to show your secrets. Oh no, mercy please. Daiju is no longer able to keep the amusement or sarcasm from his tone, and both Koga devolve into a half-snickering laugh. I missed you, grandfather. I missed you as well, my boy, Daiju replies with a bright and earnest smile. I really did fear I wouldn't get the chance to speak with you again. No, just listen, Daiju says, and Daiki quiets down. Do not feel ashamed that you chose the stars. What you did was courageous and necessary. Bold moves are required to find new and better things. There is no shame in that boldness. I am proud of you, as is your father and mother and sister. Our family is blessed to have so brave and dutiful a child. Thank you. Good. Now that that's out of the way, back to the topic. I was worried I would never get the chance to speak with you again. It was strange that I always got on better with you than with your father or mother, or my own siblings. Strange minds think alike, do they not? Oh, they certainly do, especially when they hear the call of, Daiki says before clasping his hands together in a mudra, and smoke erupts around him. Daiju starts to laugh even as Daiki reveals he is now hanging from the ceiling. Ninja! I'll show you the call of ninja, boy, Daiju says through the laughter. No call of ninja. Not call of ninja, boy. Daiki corrects him, and there's a huff from Daiju. Is that the level of humor you're going for? Something that simple? Simple is effective, Daiki says. Making things more complicated is just asking for trouble. True, but speaking of complication, how difficult is it to master that trick where the elderly reinforce themselves to be stronger? Just will to power through yourself for a basic enhancement. It usually helps as practice to think about a great hero or champion you want to emulate. Batman is a popular pick when the Undaunted were just learning how to do so. I see. So if I simply focus on how, Daiju begins to ask before he suddenly sits up straighter and gives his cane an expert twirl. I'm 25 again. If you'll excuse me, I need make an old woman pull out her hair in frustration. Try not to blow up the ship, grandfather. I'll get to an escape pod first, I assure you. Oh no, oh yes. Out of Cruel Space into a Wider Galaxy, Part 5. A scion of many worlds. Observer Wu was not sure about this next call. There had been rumor stories and absurdities from first to last. But this was one he would need to investigate thoroughly. He steels his face to a neutral position as the call goes through. You're on a drone observing? I am working, is the first thing that comes through. A voice simultaneously deep but accompanied with a chorus of tingling bells. The image shows an enormous figure that appears to be primarily composed of shimmering white fur looking over the 3D model of a building as he directs things through the air with his right hand. Support structures, beams, and building materials all soar at his direction and quickly slam themselves into place to quickly construct a large structure. I am capable of speaking as I work, so if you have questions, then ask them. I am Observer Wu from Earth. I am looking for Mr. Blue. I am one of the Blues, the enormous figure states. Jasper Blue, also Emmanuel Skitterway. The camera zooms in before something white catches onto it and it's forced back. Apologies, the drone is not of the best quality. I would assume that a God Emperor would have better. I am directing these resources into infrastructure. Things like the sewage processing plant will not build themselves, and the components that the camera drone requires are better spent ensuring that pathogens are kept out of the water, or that a medical scanner has appropriate redundancies. Emmanuel replies as the paneling to the outside of the building start attaching itself at his direction, and they're quickly left with a solid-looking structure with numerous tanks to the side. "All right, the building's finished. Painters, have your way with it," he calls out, and numerous people rush up with decorating supplies. There is more for me to do. While many of the relief ships arrived with prefabricated buildings, there was an unfortunate and nearly universal blind spot in their considerations, which is that while the world is settled by many respects, it was at a late Iron Age level at best, borderline tribal in other areas. Sewage treatment and sanitation concerns like that are simply not in their proper place. Every major and minor settlement requires a massive overhaul of its infrastructure in order to bring the living standards up to even industrial levels, let alone galactic levels, Emmanuel states. This seems rather menial for someone ostensibly in charge of an entire planet. Delegation. I have any communications and status updates relayed to me through that pursuing drone. It's a hands-free system, so while it is not always at 100% satisfaction, it allows me to lead while I also work. After all, many of the legislative concerns can be easily taken care of by my numerous assistants, but only a handful of people have the sanitation know-how and willingness to work and put together sewage containment. A little demeaning for one worshipped as a god. I am a primal. I'm going to be regarded as such whether I indent a throne with an ever-widening rear or gunk out sewer lines, and of the two, only one of them actually makes things better. Emmanuel dismisses. Really? Yet you're still not getting dirty. I could do things less efficiently to look like I've been working hard. But honestly, it's all in the axiom. The truth of the matter is that sewer work with even just a small amount of technology is more boring than dirty, Emmanuel states before turning. The camera turns with him. It now shows where an entire army of workers are installing the pipes and systems for a proper sewage network. Still, not bad, eh? 1 year ago, this place was an abandoned wreck of a smaller city. The population all but mind-controlled by a group of religious fanatics who convinced them to abandon their homes in any dignity. They've come a long way since, Emmanuel states. Have they? This was the Greenstone Alliance territory, a breakaway state from the Empire of Miru. To them, the cannon was the military innovation rocking the nation. I see. Now they get air conditioning, indoor plumbing, heating in the winter, canned food for the leaner months, telephones to speak with their loved ones over a distance, radio for alerts and entertainment, and far more, Emmanuel states as he indicates an antenna being set up. All that, Observer Wu remarks, you seem a little involved for a supposed god. There are two so-called gods on this world, no, Emmanuel replies. I, who have personally conquered much of it, wheeled and dealed with other nations, improved myself as warrior and leader both. And Isarisen. Isarisen is either the mother, grandmother, or great-grandmother of at least a quarter of the world population. And your relationship to this Isarisen? One of my wives. Our union was also a unification of LeBlanc as a single strong point on this world, and what's this? A new voice asks, and the camera reorients to a young woman with glowing golden hair. Just a camera drone, nothing to be concerned about, Emmanuel states. Oh, so it's watching us? Yes. And the image of the person on top of it? The person watching. Who is he? Observer Wu. And why is an observer needed? Do you recall whenever Earth or the origins of humanity are discussed? A little. Every time I seem to get a little bit more education, it just lets me see how much more there is. Oh, that's very normal, Emmanuel replies. If I may be introduced, Observer Wu asks. I am Empress Xavia Enlightened Luxon Divine Ascendant, ruler of Miru Reborn. Miru Reborn is one of the largest empires upon Lakran, consisting of Central Miru, the Greenstone territories of Northern Miru, and the Goldlands unification of Southern Miru. Our population is primarily Erumenta of all types, but other peoples are of course welcome. And what brought about this rebirth? Observer Wu asks, and his eyebrows go up as Xavier points right at Emmanuel. Guilty. Everywhere I turned, the planet seemed to just be full of more and more problems that needed to stop sometime 10 years ago, and no one else was available. So I did the best I could, and then broke armies, nations, and all known limits upon people. All presently known limits. What I did is only impressive when it's weighed in that I started with only Horus's memories and didn't even understand how on earth any body fully worked at the time, Emmanuel states. Yes, I read that report. It was absurd. It was accurate. We have all the parties involved to attest for it here on planet if you care to speak with them. Emmanuel notes as he checks a device and nods. All right, next is break, Xavier tells him. Excuse me. Grandmother has given me the authority to force you into rest, father, Xavier says with relish in her tone. She wouldn't. She has. If I see that you're working too hard, I can tell you to stop. You do know she legally has no such authority over me, right? Emmanuel asks, pointing a diamond-plated claw at the comparatively tiny Arumenta, who's grinning widely at this. Yes, but she'll be so disappointed that her little boy isn't taking care of himself anymore, even though he promised to, and it was a mistake working so hard to make the two of you friends, Emmanuel says in a note of false despair. Just a moment. I'll instruct the work crew on the next few communities to proceed without me. That sounds like work. A text to go with Plan B rather than Plan A is not work. It's good manners. Emmanuel protests and raises an eye ridge as a much smaller girl tries to glare him down. Are you sure you want to put so much force into your day-by-day interactions while... A tiny dark shape slams into Xavier to the Arumenta's audible protest as Magrica starts gushing about how cute it is for the little girl to finally have some grit in her gut, and how she's going to braid her hair and take her monster hunting and get her a battle axe to go with that attitude. Emmanuel turns to the politely puzzled Wu and shrugs. Motherhood does amazing things to some women. Magrica was much more openly fierce before, but she decided that all my children, adopted and otherwise, were hers to teach and nurture into proper warriors. And how did she take the fact that you are technically the step-parent of a quarter of the world's population, if what you told me about Issa Rezin is correct? She has an entire squadron of Nagasha she's training to be monster hunters. It's actually going pretty well. The jungle Nagasha are really appreciating it more than the other types. But the few cloud Nagasha they have as scouts in aerial reconnaissance are fully embracing the role. And how are you taken to godhood? Observer Wu asks, his eyes penetrating. It grows more comfortable, unfortunately. Unfortunately, Wu repeats, not questioning, but certainly prompting. I've had to put aside my own prejudices in the matter. Humans have a bad track record with self-proclaimed gods and messiahs. Too many fakes and too many holy wars. To say nothing of the cults, witch hunts, and the like. And Urthani would follow any number of faiths. But the divine figure was either some kind of divine truth, a more abstract theology, gods that embody concepts, or something animist for the most part. Did you look to the Nagasha for a better example? I did, and that's what caused me to grow more comfortable with the title. Primal Nagasha aren't worshipped in the way humans would a prohet or saint, seeing them as nigh infallible. No, a primal Nagasha is simply the very best that a Nagasha can be, and it can neither be stopped nor denied. While most of them are indeed leaders to follow, authorities to obey, or the sources of philosophy to accept, they are not regarded as unquestionable or infallible. And that is what helped? It is. I was terrified that someone would misinterpret me, either honestly or malevolently, and cause immense damage in my name. A crusade to call any politician that isn't in the military through fire and steel, or an Urthani colony deciding that they deserve the entire world, and since not only have the strength now, but a god of their own, that they are righteous in slaughter. I had several kinds of nightmare when I let my mind wander. And, Wu prompts, I had a conversation, an important one with an important person. She helped me put everything in perspective, but she's not the type to appreciate too much attention, so she's requested I keep things quiet. But I can say that she is an authority on the subject, and she had a fair amount to say. So you've spoken to other so-called gods of the serpent people. Primal Nagasha, and yes, one has arrived already. She lives her life as quietly as she can. Another is soon to arrive. The first wanted my measure. The second wants to ensure that as a more militaristic primal that I'm up to standard, as she calls it. Oh? I'm part of the smallest stable demographic in the galaxy, primals. Apparently, we're a very self-policing people. So in other words, you're more a celebrity in multiple fields than some object of worship? Closer to actual worship than celebrity worship, I'm afraid. Still, it's not mindless. And those that are looking for an excuse, well, they'll find another one if it's not me. At least if someone's trying to use my name to do something horrible, it means I have all moral authority to let them know how stupid such a thing is. I suppose that is an upside to an insane cult, deciding that it wants to go on a rampage in your name. But that's just the thing I really had to internalize. If they're going to do that, then they're going to do it, and I'm just their excuse. They'll find another if I'm not available. I'm responsible for the example I set, the actions I do, and the things I say. I am not responsible for how they are interpreted. Interesting. Still, is there a reason you're sharing this in particular? I figured the most distressing thing that Earth would consider about my situation was my rise into divine stature. A powerful soldier can be understood. A powerful politician or businessman can also be understood. But someone being regarded as a god cannot be understood within a positive context, thanks to the rather terrible history of such on Earth. Emmanuel says, that is an interesting concern. However, you do not think you're conquering an entire world to be a bad thing, considering that it was basically an unending war, competition, and self-sabotage. Yes, you see, this world was suffering over an unending brain drain due to the fact that all male colonists were lost in the initial crash of the colony ship. There were surviving males, but they were in stasis and could not be retrieved. The method that was used to ensure there would be a future population was flawed, intended as an emergency stopgap, but they didn't have the means to move past it, so it was used over and over again. This world was nearing the breaking point, and that justifies conquering it? When the nation-states are tearing themselves apart through mindless pride, scheming for the sake of scheming, or are outright predating the other states? Yes, it does. To not intervene would have killed far, far more people. So you justify things by saying that I will thank you someday? They thank me now. And it's sincere? Yes, considering that I've had a woman weep with relief at getting something as simple as a pair of glasses, or another outright beg for her child and herself to be healed of the degeneration they've suffered. How can I consider it anything but sincere? Emmanuel asked us. Oh, who are you speaking with? A new voice asks before a massive serpent woman slithers into Wu's field of view. Her hood is fully flared out to reveal her as Lady Isorisen as she regards things. A human friend? An observer from Earth. They're struggling to believe all the things they've been told. Considering some mornings I wake up scarcely believing how my life has changed for the better, I don't blame them, Isorisen notes happily. Still, is there anything this observer wants to know in particular? In particular, I want to know many things. I'm just saying my first hello and listening to whatever anyone wants to say to me. I'll be visiting that world before I return to Earth, so make of that what you will, Observer Wu says. Of course, it might be interesting to show you the temple my daughters made for me. I will admit, receiving a tour of a living god's temple from the god themselves will be a new experience for me, Observer Wu admits.